Non-duality is often presented as a philosophical insight that there is no separation between self and world, subject and object, observer and observed. From a somatic perspective, however, non-duality is not an idea to be understood but a condition the body learns to inhabit. The sense of separation does not originate in thought, it originates in contraction. It is a nervous system strategy, not a conceptual error. When the body organizes around protection, vigilance, or readiness, experience is divided. Sensation feels, over here, the world feels, over there, and awareness is experienced as something that looks at life rather than lives within it. This division is not imagined, it is embodied. Muscular bracing, shallow breath, and unresolved activation create the felt sense of a boundary where none actually exists. Somatic non-duality emerges as these protective patterns soften. As sensation becomes safe to feel without urgency, correction, or avoidance, the body no longer needs to maintain separation. Awareness is no longer experienced as detached or elevated, it is felt as continuous with sensation, movement, and environment. The body stops organizing around a central, me, that must manage experience. This is why non-dual awakening cannot be stabilized through insight alone. Without somatic integration, realization remains fragile, intermittent, or dissociated. The nervous system must learn that presence is survivable. As capacity increases, the felt sense of being a separate entity dissolves naturally, not as a belief, but as a lived reality. In this way, non-duality is not attained. It is remembered, as the body relearns how to remain without bracing, dividing, or withdrawing from life. Unity is not something the body creates, it is what becomes apparent when the body no longer has to protect itself. As long as the nervous system remains organized around defense, readiness, or control, experience is fragmented. Attention is pulled into monitoring, managing, and anticipating, and the sense of being a separate self persists as a functional necessity. Separation, in this sense, is not a belief, it is a posture. When the body begins to relax, this posture softens. Muscles release the chronic holding, breath deepens without instruction, and sensation becomes inhabitable rather than something to endure or override. As these shifts occur, the internal division between observer and experience begins to dissolve. Awareness is no longer positioned outside the body, watching from a distance. It is felt as arising within sensation itself. This is how unity is reflected somatically. There is no dramatic event or altered state required.
Instead, there is a quiet coherence, a sense that perception, sensation, and environment are no longer competing for attention. The body no longer needs to maintain a boundary to stay safe, so the felt sense of inside and outside loses its rigidity. Experience feels continuous rather than segmented. Importantly, this relaxation cannot be forced. Attempts to relax through effort often reproduce the very tension that maintains separation. Unity emerges only when the nervous system recognizes that it no longer needs to brace. Safety is not conceptual, it is physiological. As the body settles, presence stabilizes naturally, stillness becomes comfortable, contact feels unthreatening, and awareness no longer collapses into a center that must hold experience together. What remains is not a self-dissolving into something else, but a body remembering how to exist without dividing itself from life. Oneness is often described as a belief about reality, a statement that everything is one, that separation is an illusion, or that all forms share a single essence. From a somatic perspective, oneness is not something the mind adopts. It is something the body experiences when it no longer needs to divide experience for safety. Belief does not reorganize the nervous system. Sensation does. As long as the body remains organized around protection, awareness is forced into a position of distance. The world is perceived through layers of bracing, vigilance, and subtle readiness. In this state, ideas about oneness may feel true or meaningful, but they remain abstract. They do not alter how experience is lived moment to moment. Oneness becomes tangible when sensation is met without resistance. As the nervous system settles, the felt boundary between self and environment begins to soften. This does not happen through affirmation or understanding, but through the gradual recognition that sensation itself is survivable. When sensation no longer signals threat, attention no longer needs to withdraw or contract around a central identity. In this relaxed state, experience feels continuous. Sounds, movements, thoughts, and bodily sensations arise within the same field, without hierarchy. There is no effort to maintain coherence and no center that must hold awareness together. The body does not feel merged with something else, it feels uninterrupted. This is why oneness cannot be sustained as a belief. Beliefs require maintenance. Felt unity does not.
When the nervous system is regulated, oneness is not practiced or remembered. It is simply how experience organizes itself. The body reflects unity not by understanding it, but by no longer needing to experience itself as separate from life. The boundary between awareness and sensation is not a natural feature of experience, it is a byproduct of nervous system organization. When the body is braced, vigilant, or prepared for threat, awareness is experienced as something that watches sensation from a distance. Sensation feels intrusive or overwhelming, and awareness retreats into observation as a protective strategy. This creates the felt division between the one who is aware and what is being felt. From a somatic perspective, this boundary dissolves not through insight but through safety. As sensation becomes tolerable, met without urgency, avoidance, or correction, the need for awareness to remain separate diminishes. Awareness no longer has to stand apart to monitor or manage experience. It settles back into sensation itself. This shift is subtle but profound. Sensation is no longer something happening to the body while awareness looks on. Sensation and awareness are experienced as a single, continuous process. The body does not feel flooded or consumed, it feels coherent. Experience becomes immediate without being overwhelming. The dissolving of this boundary does not require altered states, concentration, or effort. It emerges naturally as the nervous system learns that feeling is survivable. When sensation no longer signals danger, awareness no longer needs to position itself as a witness. There is no longer a here where awareness resides and a there where sensation occurs. In this integrated state, experience feels whole. Perception, sensation, and awareness arise together without hierarchy or separation. What dissolves is not the body or awareness, but the protective gap between them. Non-dual unity is reflected somatically as awareness inhabiting sensation fully, without distance, without collapse, and without the need to divide life into observer and observed. The distinction between internal and external experience is not inherent, it is a function of how the nervous system organizes perception. When the body is oriented toward protection, attention is divided.
Sensation is monitored internally while the environment is scanned externally, creating a constant oscillation between inside and outside. Presence becomes fragmented, and awareness feels split between what is felt and what is observed. As the nervous system settles, this division begins to soften. Sensation no longer demands priority, and the environment no longer needs to be evaluated for threat. Attention relaxes out of its scanning patterns and becomes evenly distributed. What was previously experienced as two separate domains, inner sensation and outer world, begins to feel like a single, continuous field. This merging does not involve losing awareness of the body or dissolving into the environment. Instead, the body becomes a permeable point of contact rather than a boundary. Sounds, movement, touch, and internal sensation arise together within presence, without competing for dominance. Experience feels immediate and inclusive, rather than layered or filtered. Importantly, this integration cannot be willed. Attempts to merge internal and external awareness through focus or effort often recreate the very division they aim to resolve. Integration occurs only when the nervous system recognizes that it no longer needs to prioritize survival. Safety allows perception to reorganize naturally. In this state, presence is no longer something that moves between inner and outer reference points. It is stable, unlocalized, and unforced.
The sense of being a separate observer inside a body looking out at the world dissolves, not as an idea, but as a lived somatic reality. What remains is a quiet continuity, where body, environment, and awareness are experienced as a single unfolding rather than separate parts to be managed. The softening into everything is not an expansion of identity or a movement toward something greater. It is the gradual release of the body's need to remain defined, defended, or held apart. As long as the nervous system organizes around protection, experience must be bounded. The body maintains edges, through tension, posture, and orientation, to ensure safety. These edges create the felt sense of separation. As safety deepens, these boundaries begin to soften. Muscular holding releases without intention, breath becomes unremarkable, and the body no longer braces against sensation or environment. There is no effort to open or merge. Instead, there is a quiet relinquishing of the structures that once kept experience contained. The body no longer needs to stay distinct in order to survive. In this softening, experience feels less localized. Awareness is no longer centered in the head or behind the eyes. Sensation, perception, and movement arise without being organized around a fixed point of reference. The sense of being in the body gives way to the feeling of being as the body, continuous with sound, space, and movement. This is not a loss of self or a dissolution into abstraction. Function remains intact. What dissolves is the background tension that once required experience to be filtered through a personal center. There is no attempt to hold everything together, because nothing feels at risk of falling apart. The softening into everything is the nervous system's recognition that separation is no longer required. Presence does not expand outward, resistance dissolves inward. What remains is a simple, embodied intimacy with life, where nothing needs to be excluded, resisted, or held at a distance for experience to feel safe.